Have you ever wondered if you think you might have emotionally abusive parents? I'm Steph Stolzenbach, and today we're going to dig into 10 questions to ask yourself to really uncover this. So 1, have they withheld affection or support as a form of punishment? So what do parents think they're doing with this approach, right? They might be thinking it's punishment, tough love, maybe teaching a lesson. They might see that withdrawal as a way to enforce obedience or even to correct a behavior, thinking that you might learn to act the way they want you to. So in reality, they're really skewing the balance of give and take within that interpersonal relationship. And a young person who doesn't really have enough information to reference might not know what's normal and what's not. So what does this lead to? Oftentimes it can manifest as people-pleasing behaviors, right? Overextension of oneself, and also insecurity being caused by being subordinate in that relationship. Number 2, do they play favorites with siblings, causing rivalry or tension? Constantly telling one child to be more like the other, making them feel inferior. This might look like unequal praise, where one sibling is getting a lot of attention and recognition for minor achievements, while the other sibling is kind of left out of that mix. Or it might take the shape of unequal punishment, where one child might be getting away with a lot of different behaviors, and the other sibling has a spotlight on them, getting a lot of almost undue consequences for their behaviors. So oftentimes we might see this happen when those parents have been through something very similar in their own young childhood experiences that gets really reenacted as parents within their own family systems. Or it could just be a classic example of abusive behavior where one person is pitting someone against someone else. And typically that's a really common power or control mechanism. 3, have they isolated you from your friends or your family as a way to maintain control? This might often look like preventing you from seeing your closest friends, romantic partners, or other relatives as a way to really have dominance over you, preventing you from attending events outside of the household, really maintaining you in their close physical proximity. So why is this happening? They fear that if you build strong relationships outside of the home, you will see their behavior as abusive or unhealthy and might even pull away from them. Keeping you isolated ensures that they remain the dominant influence over your life, making it easier to manipulate your thoughts and even your decisions. 4, have they ever denied things that they've said or done that maybe leaves you questioning your thoughts or even your perceptions of an event? So I'm going to give you 3 seconds to think a little bit about what this might be. Boom, you got it. Gaslighting, folks. We really have heard a lot about this term. It's really trending across mental health spaces and social media. So 2 main things are often happening here with gaslighting. First, it's going to undermine your confidence in reality. When a parent is constantly kind of questioning your memory of an event or a conversation, it leads to more and more self-doubt that you're going to have about, did that really happen? Did that really go down how I thought it did? It also increases dependence on the abuser. The more often you're led to not know what's true and what's accurate, you rely more on that person to kind of tell you, is this real, is this not real, which really increases that emotional dependence on this person, whether or not what they're sharing with you is accurate. 5, do they dismiss or mock your achievements instead of celebrating them? Have you ever just crushed an exam and gotten a really great score on it, done really well in a sports competition, or maybe even got a starring performance in a local theater or dance competition, right? Something like that, and came to your parents and did not get the validation, the recognition, or the acknowledgement that you had really hoped to receive from them. Maybe you ace an exam that you've worked tirelessly for, lots of studying, lots of prep, and you're met with, oh, cool, you're always supposed to get A's. If so, that's a perfect example of how this might manifest. Even think about maybe coming in 3rd place out of 100 people in a competition, and you're met with, well, Maybe next time you'll come in first place. So there's a lot of dismissiveness there, a lot of rejection, and the emotional needs and validations really are not being met in those examples. That lack of validation can really diminish your confidence and make you question your self-worth. You might find yourself asking questions like, am I worthy? Am I good enough? How do I even earn my parents' love, admiration, respect? Really tough questions, but also really common when you've experienced emotional abuse from a parent. Your parents are your caregivers, and it is not your job to earn their love. That's really something that should be unconditional. 6, do they make you feel guilty or ashamed for expressing your emotions or your thoughts? A time when perhaps you've been honest, transparent with one of your parents about how you were feeling towards them. And they're saying things back to you, oh my gosh, I guess I'm a horrible parent. Or sounds like you're really sensitive and I can't really express my thoughts to you. So with that example, there's a lot of fragility on the parent's perspective, right? A lot of projecting onto you their own sensitivities, as well as their own maybe anxieties. That power and control dynamic is also really visible and felt. You may also want to share your own beliefs and thoughts, right, about politics, current events, the world. And you might be at the dinner table sharing something and met with, oh my gosh, you're too young to have an opinion on that, or you're too young to really understand the world and how it works. There's a lot of dismissiveness that might be felt, and that can lead to you really questioning your own thoughts and beliefs, which is a really uncomfortable and hard place to be. So in the case of expressing your feelings, if you're met with some of those comments and reactions back to yourself, it may lead you to not really share much moving forward, right? Suppressing those emotions, not really sharing your thoughts for fear of the reaction that you might get. And a lot of that fragility of your parents kind of coming into play there. This is going to make it really hard to trust your emotional instincts in all aspects of life, with friends, family, work, and school. When it comes to sharing your personal beliefs on all different types of subject matter, it can also lead to you feeling a fear of rejection or not really being understood or supported. You may also experience that fear of disagreement, which can really stifle your own growth and development as a person. And this fear can also lead you to maybe settling for less in your life, because that is less scary than potential confrontation or conflicts. 7, do they make you feel responsible for their emotions? Perhaps blaming you when they feel upset or angry. This can come about in a subtle way. Let's say your parent really loses their temper with you over something small. Later on in the day, instead of apologizing, they almost blame you for their reaction. Well, if you really never did this, then I wouldn't be upset with you. This teaches you to take responsibility for their outbursts rather than them owning and managing their own emotions. So this can be a tough one to navigate, right? Because parents do play a role in being a disciplinarian. Let's say maybe you come home from school, you left your bag everywhere, there's food out on the counter, and they get upset. But it's a very heightened, very intense reaction that doesn't really match up with what occurred. In that situation, if it's something that's not within reason for what took place, then that is not something that you are ultimately responsible for in managing, supporting, or containing. That's really something that the parents are having to own and have accountability for. Number 8, do you feel like you have to walk on eggshells around them to avoid conflict? Okay, so the telltale sign here is that you're really changing your behavior in their presence. So maybe when they get home from work or running errands, maybe you go to a different part of the house. Perhaps you're waiting to see what mood they're in, which then dictates kind of how you're showing up and how your mood is. Things like that can really, really be difficult and a part of what's happening. 9, do they act differently in public? Maybe showing a different part of themselves that's more kind or supportive, and then at home, showing you a different part of them that's a little bit more toxic or abusive. So this can leave you feeling really confused. It can be really difficult to navigate. You might be at the grocery store, A parent sees a neighbor or a friend, they're really friendly and personable, laughing, joking around, right? And then you get back home maybe 20 minutes later, you're unloading the groceries, and there's almost a switch that you notice. Your parent might be a little bit more guarded, stern, quiet, dismissive. So this can lead to a sense of confusion or even longing, really wanting that version of your parent that's out with the neighbor to be the parent that's home with you. One other consequence of this is that it makes it really hard for you to justify your feelings about them to other people because they're not seeing that side of them out in public, right? They're seeing the kind, warm, and supportive version, which is really different than what you've been navigating oftentimes at home. 10. Do they refuse to accept your boundaries even when you've communicated those clearly? So you tell your parents, I really don't want to talk about my personal relationships with you, and I would love it if you could respect my privacy. But instead of that, they do the opposite, right? They disregard your request. They talk about it with you even more. They might even gossip about it with neighbors, friends, relatives, and completely dismiss your request to them. It can even escalate to them maybe going through your personal belongings, your phone, your journal, your social media accounts, and completely bypassing what feels sacred and safe to you around that emotional boundary. They may even use guilt-tripping tactics with you, like, we're your parents, we deserve to know everything about you. They're conveying how much they love you, how much they want to hear about your life. But the important thing to remember is that you set a boundary and they did not respect it. It can be really hard to come to the realization of the existence of abuse, right? We want to believe that our parents love and support us and that they would never go against those things. So a lot of the time, we might just kind of go along with it and assume that they have the best of intentions, even in really difficult moments. This is also really hard to resolve yourself. Not only are these not your problems, right? These are the problems of someone who you are both emotionally and financially dependent on. This is someone that you probably live with, are reliant on for shelter, food, water, all of those really basic needs. So it's not like other relationships where you can't just pack up, sever ties, and move forward. The attachments and the connections here are much more significant. This can be really hard to accept, but if a few of these questions really resonated with you, then a great first step might be talking to some people outside of your household, right? Trusted friends, trusted relatives, and beginning to open up some dialogue around this. And perhaps even moving from that is thinking about seeking professional help, maybe scheduling a chat with us here at Charlie Health to learn more and get additional support. Thanks everyone for watching. I really hope that this was useful to you or that you learned some different tidbits that you can bring into your life moving forward. As always, for more information or support, please check out the links below in our description, and we'll definitely see you again next time.